Hello everyone, Melody here, mom of 4 and our blended family of 6. Welcome to Homeschool Happy Hour. Today we're going to have hopefully a brief and not babbly video all about burnout and how can we prevent it, how do we deal with it, what is it, why do we have it, all the things. So if any of that interests you, please stick around and let's check it out. If you are new here, my name is Melody. I have been homeschooling. We're in our 11th year, finishing up our 11th year. We will be going into our 12th year of homeschool in the fall. And this is Sassy, who looks like she's about to start barking. Hopefully she doesn't. She's naughty puppy. And now the neighbor is mowing their lawn, so I hope you can't hear that. It's been quiet in here, and if you are not new to this channel, you'll know I'm in a different space again, and this is what happens when you're transitioning between locations and you don't have your regular video space anymore because you took a huge break. Bear with me. Hopefully this will work out. Today I wanted to talk to you about burnout. If you have experienced burnout and you're not sure what to do, or you have experienced burnout and you have found some really useful tactics to combat that and deal with it and get rid of it, then please drop a comment in the box below and let us know where you're at. I'm hoping this video can serve as the instigator to a conversation where we can find solutions for each other, because not every home is the same, not every homeschool is the same, not every family is the same. And sometimes what works for one person doesn't work for another. And the more information we have, the more we have in our toolbox, the more likely we'll find something that does work for us. It is spring/early summer, so you might be wondering, why am I talking about burnout right now? Most people have either finished their homeschool for the year or are wrapping it up for the year. But this is not the season that I hear most people are struggling with burnout. However, I do want to talk about burnout because this is the season where we are planning, a lot of us are planning for the following school year. I find it more useful to talk about burnout before we are buried in it and try and prevent it in the first place. So we're gonna start there with burnout prevention. No, we're not. No, that's a lie. We're gonna start with what is burnout and why do we have it? For me, burnout is I'm mentally exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted and I let all the doubts get louder in my head. I let other people's input weigh heavily on me, and there are certain seasons of our homeschool where I have truly deeply asked myself, would my kids be better off if I just sent them to public school? Am I doing what I need to do? Are they getting what they need? And just that constant flow of questions and doubt, and where you just stop trusting yourself. It also means that I feel irritable, and I'm not usually, if I'm feeling burnt out, I'm not thinking really clearly about what's right in front of me. I'm just kind of overcome by emotions related to the negative commentary in my head. The reason, well, let's fix this. For me, burnout often has more to do with what's going on outside of homeschooling than what's happening in homeschooling at this point in our journey. Again, we will be in our 12th year. So the homeschool aspect for us is usually pretty smooth. But when we have a death in the family, a job loss, we're moving houses, conflict with ex-spouses, we are in a blended family, when we have illness, and I have worked outside of the home, at least part-time, for most of the time that I have been homeschooling. So maybe it's just stress because I'm spinning too many plates. Maybe I'm working 2 part-time jobs, but also try to do something fun for myself and balance my physical and my mental health and make sure the kids are getting homeschool. And I just get overwhelmed with everything that's happening. For me, that's the most common thing that leads to burnout. When the kids were younger, burnout had more to do with homeschooling. And I attribute that 100% to me taking an approach that was not ideal. So we'll talk about that. I've got a list. I wrote it down so that hopefully I can stay on track and we don't get too sidetracked here. Let's jump back into prevention. So we know what it is. Maybe we know why it's happening. Maybe we can't quite identify why it's happening, but it's happening. Before then, how can we prevent it from happening? What can we do? And this is why I'm making this video right now, because we're in the planning season. And I think that the number one prevention of burnout is how you plan. In my experience, the number one way to burnout and exhaustion and frustration and irritation on parent and kids is to replicate the school system. So if you are brand new to homeschooling or relatively new to homeschooling and you had this image in your head of essentially the classroom at home where your kid has their desk, maybe you have a schoolroom where they do all their schoolwork and it's highly structured. I'm not saying that can't work. There are people that do it, they like it, the structure works for them, it works for their kids. It can. More often than not, in my experience in talking to people and educating myself on different homeschooling methods and approaches, replicating the classroom is a fast track to burnout. Homeschool isn't school at home. It's a completely different educational path. It's not what you learn with a worksheet at a desk. Can we use a desk? Yes. Can we use worksheets? Yes. Are those things bad? No. But if those are the focal point of your homeschool, it typically doesn't last very long. I've talked to many parents whose children are now back in public school that took them out, tried to homeschool, and talk about what a massive failure it was for them. And then when they talk more about what they did and how they approached, I find they were trying to replicate school at home. I strongly recommend you avoid that. Directly behind that is people will do their research and they will find a homeschooling style, I guess, and they'll say, oh, I love this style, I read this book, this style sounds like it will be wonderful for our family, and then they take that and they try and replicate that specifically, and they end up with burnout because they're not doing what's best for their family. They're trying to replicate someone else's recommendations. So in order to avoid any of that, the first thing that I recommend you do if you haven't started homeschooling or if you've already started homeschooling and you haven't done this yet is write a mission statement. I wrote a mission statement before I started homeschooling. I spent a lot of time putting it together and contemplating it and bouncing it off of other people that I trusted and valued the opinions of. And in the end, I ended up with something that I still go back to. And it really helps round me out and bring me back to our focus. It reminds me, why am I homeschooling? What are my goals? And what is my overarching vision for this path, for our family, for my girls? And whenever I do that, I often find that the burnout that I am experiencing is because I have deviated from that mission statement. Now, I'm not saying your mission statement can't change as your kids grow and change as you learn new things. Absolutely, it's good to be flexible. Again, rigidity is a problem. That will lead to burnout, so don't be rigid. For me, that mission statement has held true. And so having that to go back to has been really helpful. Then with that guidance, every year when I'm planning, I try to break down what are our wants and what are our needs. Now, every state has different rules about homeschooling. Some states require you to track hours, some states require you to turn in work, some states require you to cover certain subjects. It is, of course, very important that you know what these guidelines are within your state and that you follow them. Just remember, usually even these rules are not rigid. It gives you a framework to work within, if you will. It's not a black and white to-do list. Maybe there's a state out there that has something like that. Let me know if you live in a state like that, and you have my deepest apologies. That sounds like it sucks. But in our state, we have subjects we have to cover. right? And so there's a list of subjects that we have to cover throughout their homeschool education, right? So that is a need. We need to cover all these topics some point between kindergarten and 12th grade. And honestly, it's pretty easy. A lot of those things we cover just in life. It's not something you have to cover with a curriculum or a book necessarily. When I think wants and needs, I think about what do I want for the girls academically? What do I want for them socially? What do I want for them emotionally? And which of those wants are actual needs? Like, I would love it if we had a homeschool group of friends that we could connect with and like we did weekly things. I want something like that. I'm 11 years in and I have never found it. I have not found the right fit for us. And so we don't need that. There are other alternatives. But when I'm doing my planning, I do remember my kids need social opportunities to get out of the house and interact with other people. So then we make sure they're signed up for sports or theater or whatever it is they're interested in at the time. For me and my house, a need is opportunity to invest time and energy in the things they're passionate about. A need in academics is they're pretty basic academic needs. Just, are we making progress in math? Are we making progress in reading and writing? For us, that's a need. Do I want them to read 25 books this year? That would be great. One of my kids will do that without being asked. The other one, not so much. But I need to figure out where we stand there. If during your planning process, you can have a really clear idea of what those needs are separated from what your wants are, and then try and find a really good balance of both, you are likely going to have a plan that everyone is more content with. I don't know that I want to say happy. Sometimes my kids are like, I'm not happy to be doing geometry. I'm not happy to be doing algebra. Well, we need to do it. So, but if we have a plan that involves, okay, well, we're doing geometry or algebra, depending on who the kid is, and you also have the opportunity to go be involved in the theater. And you also have the opportunity to have free time in the middle of the day to read books of your choice. Again, depending on who the kid is and what it is they're interested in. If I balance the things that they're interested in and their wants with the things that I feel they need to do, we're setting ourselves up for a smoother path throughout the year. And even with all the planning, even with the best of intentions, sometimes life happens. Sometimes life happens and the burnout starts to sneak in on you. And it's important to be aware and start noticing, am I becoming irritable? Are my kids becoming irritable? Am I responding to that by digging in harder? Like, we have to get this done. We have to get this done. Or am I responding with just giving up? Like, am I having an extreme response to that irritability? To me, that's a really clear indicator that I am approaching burnout and I need to stop and reset. Another clear indicator for me is, are we skipping joy? When we're reading through something and I see something or the kids see something that perks our interest and we say, hey, we should check this out. Do I say, we don't have time for that. We have to get this other thing done. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes we don't have time to go off on a rabbit trail and we do need to get other things done. But if that is becoming the norm, where those rabbit trails are just always getting ignored and we're skipping the things that bring us joy and we're cutting the things out of our day that bring us joy, then we need to stop, refocus, and reset. When this is happening, it's important to remember it's not them, the kids. It's probably me. It's usually in our house when everyone's getting burned out, it's probably me. It's probably me digging in too hard, me getting focused on something that I want for them to accomplish, me being worried or stressed about not getting enough done, or me being worried or stressed about what other people are thinking. As a homeschooling parent, no matter how old your kids are, please remember that you set the tone. You set the tone in your home, you set the tone in your homeschool. Now, I'm not saying our kids are perfect, infallible angels. They are not. Sometimes they're little turds, and that's just part of being a kid. And I'm not saying they should always get what they want. I truly don't think they should. Sometimes we have to work through things, and sometimes the answer is no, and sometimes we do what we don't want to do. What I'm saying is, on the whole, we set the tone, and we have the power to have our homeschool be a positive, joyful space, or a high intensity, irritable, uncomfortable space. And I don't say this out of judgment. I have been the homeschool mom that makes my home both. So we've all been there. It happens. You just have to be able to notice it. You have to stop and see it and reset. At the same time, we need to remember sometimes it's not me, it's them. And by them, I mean outside opinions. Sometimes we've got family members or friends or random strangers who, I don't know why we think their opinions matter or we give them the time of day. If you don't let it bother you, great. That's good. Wonderful. I'm working on it. I don't know why people think they get to have opinions on our family, but they do. And sometimes when we get those little tidbits, all of a sudden we feel pressure. And then when we feel pressure, we pass that pressure onto the kids. We might pass that pressure onto how our homeschool's functioning and the tone that we're setting. And that really will contribute to our burnout. And it contributes to the self-doubt and the negative self-talk that can go along with that. It's important to remember what your priorities are. For our family, the 3 R's, academically speaking, are our priorities. Reading, writing, arithmetic. If we're touching on those 3 things academically, we're fine. It's good. We're fine. We don't have to always be delving into history and science and art and foreign languages. We don't have to put all of our energy into all of those things all of the time. Those things are important and they should definitely be incorporated into our academic planning. But if it gets to the point where it's too much, emotionally, mentally, just generally speaking, then for us, I choose to back off and really just focus on the 3 R's and remember that those are our academic priorities, but the social emotional priorities are more important for us. Are my children thriving socially, emotionally? Are my children feeling confident? Do they love learning? Are they learning how to advocate for themselves? Are they learning life skills? Are they confident in who they are? Are they investigating the things that they love? That trumps the academics. When we bring things down to that simple 3 R's, we can really focus heavily on those other things that are more important. For me, I try to maintain the 3 R's throughout the homeschool year, no matter what's happening. By maintaining, that doesn't necessarily mean we're sitting down and doing structured curriculum. It could be, writing. I want to make sure my kids are helping with writing tasks. If they were younger, maybe we're not homeschooling writing right now, but maybe I ask my kid to help me write the grocery list. I'm talking about youngers, of course. Or, we'll talk about the prisoner. She's my oldest homeschooler, and I haven't given her any major writing assignments recently, but she was creating a resume and writing a resume for herself and putting that together. She has been taking on more responsibilities for making her own phone calls, like she needs new contacts, order your contacts, make a doctor's appointment, call and make your doctor's appointment. Obviously, I'm there to help her and walk her through that. And I know that doesn't sound like writing, but sometimes for her it can be. She can kind of write notes on what she wants to say or how that goes, if it's helpful to her. And then she doesn't think she's doing school per se. And she is also just learning life skills, but she's working on her writing. So we can balance those things. So we tend to shift if we're feeling like we're really feeling more burnout, depending on what our burnout level is. We tend to prioritize just the basic needs a little bit more than those extra wants. And by me, I mean my academic wants, right? So I just talked about how we are prioritizing their emotional needs or social needs, that kind of thing. But the academic wants tend to take a back seat. And that is okay. It is okay to do that. I find that burnout often happens maybe like 2/3 into the school year for us. That's usually when it kind of hits. This can also be connected to the season where we're at. We can have a long, cold, dreary winter sometimes. We're not getting enough vitamin D, I think, and that can impact our mood, and our mood will impact our burnout level. And at a certain point, I just have to accept it. I just have to accept that I am maxed out. We need a break, full stop. Everyone walk away for a minute. And by a minute, I might mean a month or 2. And that's okay. Part of what helps me to accept taking that break, or maybe just boiling it down to, okay, well, we've dropped everything. Got academic for school. All I need you guys to do is a math lesson and a grammar lesson, which will take you less than 30 minutes, and then we're done with school for the day. That's it. That's all we got. And then of course I have like a book they have to read. Like, here's your book, read it by the end of the month. That's your reading assignment. And gosh, that's super bare minimum. And I start to get like self-doubt. Sometimes I'm even scared about telling you guys that, because then I feel like people are gonna come at me and be like, oh, if that's all you're doing for your kids, then you shouldn't be homeschooling. This isn't right. That's educational neglect. All these people with their uneducated and ignorant perspectives, it makes me nervous, right? So part of acceptance is giving myself a reality check. Now, they say that, not they say, Theodore Roosevelt specifically said, comparison is the thief of joy, right? We shouldn't compare. If the homeschooler next to you is still elbow deep in homeschool curriculum and that's working for them, great. That's not our home. It doesn't have to be the same. If the public school is still in session and kids are still working, but you guys decided to take a month off and just enjoy the outdoors and maybe start your garden in the spring instead of sit down and do academics, it doesn't matter. It's great. You don't need to compare. Now, that being said, part of what can help me accept backing off in the spring and not feeling totally guilt-ridden about backing off is a little bit of a reality check comparison. I remind myself that during that first half of the year, or 2/3 of the year, or 3/4 of the year, whatever it is, wherever we're at, typically we have accomplished more than what their public school peers accomplish the entire year. And so I know this as I was a public school child, so I remember how much we got done, because I work in the classroom actively, and because my oldest 2 went to public school and I saw how much work was required from them and what they were doing. And it's not just workload, like they might have done more worksheets than my kids at home, because we're not super keen on worksheets, but they're not understanding the material as well. They're not covering as much material as well. And so that comparison is not to put anyone up or down. It just brings peace to my mind that I need to stop worrying about this. My kids aren't behind. It's not detrimental to them if we take a huge step back. It's also helpful for me to review, I guess, and look at the end of the school year. Every year in our state, they require yearly testing. So I give my girls their yearly test and I look at their test and it gives me their results from each year. And every year they're growing. Every year they have growth. Every year they're testing in the 90th percentile plus, and having those things helps me. Now, if they were testing in the 30th percentile and there was good cause for them being there, maybe they had a learning disability or struggled with something in particular, but every year they were making growth, that would be okay with me. It's not about being at the 30th, the 50th, the 90th. It's not about the percentile that they hit. It's about their growth, and they're showing that every year that they're learning, and therefore I am happy. I need to remember to have gratitude for what we have accomplished rather than guilt for what we didn't finish. Remember, in the public school classroom, they don't finish the material. Not only do they not finish the material, but it's very rare for them to do a material. Rare? I don't even know, that's generous. That's a generous statement, rare. I've never seen it happen where they begin a material and they work through it and they cover all of it and finish the book. I have seen it where they take, like, we'll do chapter 1, then we go to chapter 5, then to chapter 7, then chapter 13, where we're skipping through, and maybe at the end we are at the end of the book, but we skipped a whole bunch of lessons. Or maybe we're going through it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we only made it to chapter 6 through 13. Like, that's pretty typical. So when I look at the material that we have covered, that can help me be grateful for what we have done rather than being worried about what we haven't done. The last thing that I do to help reset and to get myself out of burnout is to ask myself, what would happen if? What would happen if we didn't make any more progress than what we made today, academically? Nothing. Nothing would happen. We would start next school year fresh. We would take this time to do what we needed to do, and we would move forward when we were ready. Nothing would happen if we stopped making progress today. What would happen if we pushed through and I demanded that my kids make this progress? They're probably not going to make it. We might make it through the material, but they're going to be so resistant. I'm going to be so resistant and burnt out. They're probably not going to retain it. So why do it? They're going to end up resentful. I'm going to end up irritated. Nobody's going to have learned anything. And we're going to finish the school year off with a really negative experience. Why? There's no benefit to that. So just let it go. It's okay to just let it go. It's okay if progress stops today. Also remember, progress is more than academics. So if I'm not making progress in my algebra lessons in this moment, sorry, the dog's coming in and out of the dog door. That's okay. Maybe I made all the progress I needed to make for now, and later I'll come back to it fresh and make the progress that's needed then. What would happen if we did nothing? If we had nothing else happening the rest of the school year academically, if I took all of our homeschool materials and I boxed them up and we didn't touch them again until fall. Now, it doesn't matter when you ask yourself this question, really. Maybe you started the school year in September and you made it to December, and then Christmas break happened, and then you had major things happening in your life, or you didn't have major things happening in your life and everyone's just burnt out. And you took all of your homeschool materials, your academic materials, and you boxed them up and you didn't touch them again until next September. What would happen if you took off January, February, March, April, May, June, July, and August? What would happen if you took off 8 months? Nothing. Nothing major is going to happen. Now, if you live in a state that requires certain things, I can't promise nothing can happen if the state is monitoring and you need to turn your stuff in, and that's a whole nother thing. But if you put your academics away and you focused on other things, your children are still learning. You guys are still developing a strong family, strong emotional bonds. You're supporting your kids in the things they want and need to do. Learning doesn't just stop when we take away the academics or when we take away the homeschooling. I'm not suggesting we should let our kids potato on the couch and do nothing all the time. That's just not healthy for anyone, right? We don't want to live a sedentary lifestyle. I'm not suggesting that you have no structure or that the kids rule the roost. I strongly believe that structure is good and that the parents need to be the guides in the home and that we need to be physically active and healthy people. But what if we set aside all of the academics and we just focused on making meals as a family and playing games and reading books together and watching movies we love together and going outside and having a hike? And what happens if we took a year off and we did that? I very much doubt it would be detrimental. Academics has a place, and we do need to focus on the things we need to focus on, and growth does need to happen. I will not and would not ever suggest like educational neglect. I'm talking about small, relatively small time frames in the bigger picture of homeschooling. I'm talking about when you're feeling burnt out, when you can't give anymore. Take the time to replenish and reset. Let your kids replenish and reset, because that tone that you're setting in your home for your homeschool is what everything is built upon. And that matters more than algebra or English or history or what the nosy neighbor has to say or what Grandma Karen has to say or what your sister has to say or what your best friend has to say. Take a breath. Accept it if you're feeling burnt out. Avoid it if you can. But when it hits, and it will hit, if you are homeschooling, there will be a time when it hits. Accept it, reset, and let go of the pressure that we put on ourselves. I hope that answers the questions about burnout. I do truly feel for you if you find yourself in the grips of burnout. Feel free to drop a comment below. You can jump on over to Instagram. Sometimes people message me on Instagram and it goes to my request box and then I don't see it for a while, but I do try and check it and I do respond, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, and hopefully you'll connect with other people in the comment box and other homeschoolers that can help you feel supported and get the guidance that you need to find good balance in your homeschool for yourself and for your kids. For today, that is all I have for you. Next time, I don't know if it's the next video or not, but I do still have coming up how to deal with family, friends, and strangers that have opinions that annoy us or that are difficult to deal with. I do have our fall academic plan formulating in my brain and on paper. I actually started writing it down, that I'll be covering. And I do have curriculum that we'll be looking at. So if you have anything else that you want covered in future videos, please drop a comment in the box below and let me know what it is you're interested in talking about or seeing, and I will do my best to get those out to you. Otherwise, I will catch you next time.